I come from particles of silt, igneous ash that floated in air and water, sunk with trace, sedimented mudstone on a Paleozoic sea floor. I come from the compaction of swamp-sucked carboniferous plants. I come from purple slate and anthracite, hand-hewn. I am extracting the overburden and winning my foundations. I'm a therapeutic writing practitioner. I've got a master's in creative writing for therapeutic purposes, and through now my own therapeutic writing process, supported by Fiona Hamilton, I'm exploring the stories of my maternal grandparents, Feeny and Bill Thomas, who lived in early to mid 20th century Wales. I'm curious as my exploration of their lives continues. I find that my work braids deltaic deposits from industrial Wales with abuse and women's agency, with language and identity, with health at work, public duty, colonialism, and the climate emergency. I notice how the traces from this family line, with its trauma and gifts, its shame, its silence and success, rise in my own life. I'm inspired by the concepts expressed in Welsh as hiraeth and cynefin, and the excitement that absence, loss, and affirming identity, how they become portals for my own creativity. Welsh not. My Welsh is tipyn bach, I say, holding my right thumb and finger thus, half an inch apart. My Welsh is tipyn bach, it flickers on my tongue. My mother did not teach me her mother tongue. I don't suppose she thought I would grow up coarse, stupid, or promiscuous, but she said it might confuse my father. So the only voice I had as a child was his. My Welsh is tipyn bach, it flickers on my tongue. While I do not speak Welsh fluently, or often sound Welsh, I do come from those women, from Tryphenas, from Margaret and Elizabeth, from Hughes, Davis, Thomas. I come from those women of Llangadog, Pengan, Ystrad-Gynlais, Haverfordwest, and Swansea. I come from yellow sulphur smoke, coal-gritting eyes, quartz dust unseen in the air. Although my blood is from Crymi and Saudi, my hiraeth is in the rivers of the north, the Llydwy, the Conwy, the Lledr. I come from deep mine mycelial threads. I come from those places lit by candle, filament, and gas mantle. I come from the power of water, slate, and coal. I come from those women who scrubbed front steps proud, polished glass and silver, who come from straggling streets of houses with a front room and a back kitchen. I come from those women who folded their arms across a cotton striped bound bosom. I come from those women who pinched mouths at others' sin folded in a shawl. I come from women who felt the need to fold their sin in a shawl. My grandfather Bill, at the age of 32, was appointed development engineer in Udi coalfields of Nigeria. He returned home to the Rhymney Valley and brought back gifts for his young bride. Ivory beads. We hang on a necklace stand with other strung beads, amber, buttons, clay cubes. We no longer live around necks. We have barely left this room for 20 years since you last wore us at your mother's birthday. Your buttermilk white with lines, smears in darker shades, burnt sugar and coffee. We lie around your neck now, cool cream against skin tanned in the Welsh sun. We take on your warmth and worry. We do not overheat. We keep the cool of the flowing river. Along our thread, we reduce in size, hand-rolled measure from the plump ellipse just above your breastbone to the slim fingernail length at the nape of your neck. We were loved once, but now we click uncertainty, like crickets at dusk. We were loved once, but now we sense shame and cruelty. People to creature, people to nation, nation to nation. Our water, no longer the Niger's creeks, but raindrops we see through windows, tears on your cheeks. Our garden is the head of an elephant, the face of the leader, the pride of people for whom our herd worked. We were loved once, would like to be loved again. Wound around your fingers, tick against each other, twine in your palms as you hold our weight. The string is our community. If we unwind, we fall loose, run away, drop bead by bead, clatter in the hollow of a wooden box, the lid closed tight. Take a new cotton strand, pass it through our spindle holes, retie the knot. Can we be good again? Can we help you find our leader, the one who sits above your sternum, lies next to your heart, is the force of the woman who wore us before. That woman was Feeney, born in September 1896 in Bargoed, South Wales, and it's her story which has always fascinated and troubled me. A powerful presence through such dark absence, the crucible of my family. Broadstone. I can speak. I do not have COPD, my mother said, as the physicians tried to diagnose her illness. She kept so much silence for herself, but sounded her voice to others. I never met my grandmother, never heard her speak yet. She must have spoken to my daughter, to her daughter, my mother. When did my mother find out if she was only 19 when her mother died? Did Feeney tell her? What did Feeney say? Did she find out from someone else? Does it matter? It matters. It matters that my grandmother's mother was raped by her father when she was 19. This was the story, put back into the throat of anyone who dared voice it. This was the silence, the stone that stopped the story rush. Feeney's adult life was full of public service and philanthropy as she supported her local community and welcomed German and Polish Jewish refugees to Wales. Candelabra. I reached my hands to clasp the column, my fingers gloved not to tarnish the polished plate. I dropped my gaze, see gratitude etched in copper letters to commemorate its service. I wonder why they chose the small font to note your achievement. My eyes flicker along swirled, grooved arms, opening in welcome as I imagine women wrapped in skins and shawls, gathering around cradles and cooking pots, sharing a panad, lighting a candle. I see the knock, drip pan, the sconce, the snuffer with its carved silver flame shining my reflection. How did you move from teacher, new wife, young mother, to find your mettle among the men in 1931? The first woman chairman of Ystrad Gynraes Rural District Council. The family moved to Betws in North Wales in 1938, and they flourished for 7 years. Bill respected in his work in the quarries, my mother doing well in school, Feeney with her community work. Her conception and death shrouded in mystery, uncertainty, and shame. Slate step. Standing on the front step of Canabrin, Carless, I look up at a pine, close horizon. Pine and spruce above the Derry and Dillas. What was it like in Betws on the back step of your house? Oak and ash over the Conwy? Why did she go out into the dark that night? I always see the pale face of a woman clutching a hank of coal lying on a bruised purple slate. Snow falling, falling, falling. That image as she died alone on the step in January 1945. 6. My grandparents were inevitable cogs in the heavy industrial and colonial features of early 20th century Wales. I too feel their sense of service, and I want to do more, to be more, to decolonise and decarbon myself without guilt, with compassion and insight. My Welsh is tipyn bach. It flickers on my tongue, taps R on my teeth, coils my lips and cheeks, roars from my throat. Diolch yn fawr.
Wow. What a wonderful collection of pieces. are you comfortable now, Carrie, to come and face this so that the online people as well as the in-person people can see you, and that way Carolina, I think, will also be present.
Where's the best place to sit?
Yes, where you were stuck, anywhere around there. So we have plenty of time for discussion, dialogue. Please do prompt me, if anyone online would like to speak. Carolina, if you want to speak, if I miss you out. But let's throw it open. Elise Pinot, welcome from Arizona. We'd like to see you.
Very good to see all of you. What outstanding presentations, all three, one after another. So congratulations to all three of you. I am struck by how autoethnography, one of the things it does is often dislodge our presuppositions, makes us look at things from a different perspective, different personal perspective. And all three did that very much today from a different theoretical perspective. I want to start with Carolina, who gives me the idea of silence that then plays for me as a lens through all three. And congratulations, Carolina. I hope that your defense goes very well. It's beautiful work. I think we often think about collaboration as something that happens between persons, but this notion of silence makes me think about the collaborative relationship of speech and silence, and how these also work together in a kind of dialectical relationship. And it brings me back to Carrie, looking at the pictures, the images of you, how pictures, we often say, speak louder than words, or the notion of gaydar, the ways in which we might code things without language. And of course, Mel, this image of women standing with their arms crossed. The bit of Welsh, I'm assuming that I can't understand, but I can hear the rhythm of it. And so this relationship of speaking and not speaking really expanded for me, rather thinking of silence as a bad thing, break silence, come to voice, all the ways that we typically theorize that. But silence also as gift, that the genes, so to speak, genetic material, the mineral of our life, the places where we must listen to one another, the importance of silence being a very powerful and perhaps one of our most instructive tools. My own background as a communication theater person, we might reperform what we call naturally occurring conversation to replicate someone's speech. And one of the tasks is to try to sit in their silence, that we learn as much about a person when we try to match the longevity, the placement, the quality of their silence. And so all three of you in your own way gave me so much to think about, to expand my own understanding of speech. So thank you so much. Three wonderful presentations.
Anybody else?
Can I follow up on
please do, yeah.
comment? Thank you very much, Elise, for that comment. As I was listening to you, it occurred to me that maybe my mother's gift to me was her silence, and maybe if I had been told, I didn't find out until I was 30 what had happened. I had my grandmother came to be conceived, and I never knew her. But my mother she told me, then she closed it off. And maybe if she had told me, maybe I wouldn't have taken the opportunity, found the opportunity to go deep inside myself and to think of all those other issues which emerge in the pieces that I've just read. So yeah, she was always a listener, and she was always giving herself for other people. But maybe the thing that she gave me was that silence, and left me to find out for myself. So, thank you, ma'am.
Carrie or Carolina, did you want to respond? At least offered us a lot there. So
yes, sure. I don't know. Can you hear well? Yeah, it's
yes.
Okay. Okay. So thank you everybody for listening and watching, and for your response, your kind response, I have to say. Yeah, and it's very interesting to think about silence, for me, especially because I work with language, and we often tend to think that language is something that we say, right? Like language happens in words, throughout words. But what I have come to realize is that language often happens in silence, that silence, as Elise told us, silence is constituted of language, right? Like language cannot happen without silence. And we build our meanings throughout the silence that we make or that we present. And at some level, we cannot be language beings without the silence that we are able to make or even to endure, because silence, it's hard to endure, right? I intended, as I said in my presentation, to stay silent for 20 seconds at first. And I was worried. I was like, everybody's going to think that the connection had failed or something. And 20 seconds of silence can be very uncomfortable to stand, right? And I think we have to think about it, especially as autoethnographers who are always talking about how can we perform our autoethnographies, how can we express our emotions, our feelings, but thinking about how silence has an important role into that, and maybe how we have to feel uncomfortable in silence first, so we can make sense of ourselves within those silent periods and then speak out, right? So I have learned a lot about silence. I'm a very outspoken person. I talk a lot. I'm a teacher, so I spend like most of my days talking. And how autoethnography allowed me to stay in silence was a gift. Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful word to that. I have learned a lot with those gifts that autoethnography has gave to me. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor, actually. Thank you. And excuse any English mistakes.
Yeah, I could comment, Elise, as a queer-oriented researcher and researching the representations, photographs. It's always what is shown in the photograph, but it's what is brought out, of course, and what is not shown. And I'm also analyzing the unbearable images behind the images shown. So what are those images which were too intolerable to people to see or to show? So that's what it's actually my work all about, to show those silence clips. Yeah, those silence.
Anybody in the room or online that would like to join in? Yeah.
Thanks to all three of you. I really enjoyed the presentations. Talk about the democracy. Now I'd like to ask you a specific question, because I've just spent the last 3 days in Wales enjoying the refugee. That's been great. I'm listening to some well-speaking people. I love the word you use, tip and back. Is that what you say?
Tip and back, little bit.
Little bit, yeah. But with that word you use two expressions, it flickers off my tongue and it coils my lips. So I love the way you poeticize that. Is there a sense in which tipping back is how can I say, maybe an improvisational or an energetic force which moves beyond the forms of language? That's how it felt to me, that you were, the fact that it was flickering off your tongue, that evokes a kind of imaginative improvisational force. I don't know, is that part of the way in which it's represented?
Well,
move on to the next question.
little bit.
Okay.
And it's a classic answer when people say, "Oh, choose to be Welsh," and say, "Tipping back." There's a big movement now in Wales around bilingualism, and bilingualism doesn't mean equal Welsh and English.
Right.
Even tipping back means that I'm bilingual, and I have bilingual identity. Well, I'm Welsh identity, but it's kind of it impacted for me by the fact that I don't speak Welsh fluently, that I'm looking teaching things, but I think because because so much of speaking Welsh, you know, it does happen around different parts of the mountain trap, so that was,
Yeah, sure.
but I think it is mostly physical than that as well.
Right.
I think so. That's it. Yeah.
Okay,
Mm.
thank you. Can I ask you another quick question? You use the word heret.
Yeah.
We use that at home. I'm Cornish.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we use, I think that came into Cornish language when the miners left. Yeah, when the diaspora at the end of the 19th century, Cornish miners went all over the world. And I understand heret as a longing for home.
It's
Is that the same as well?
talk to Menor Elgin and Pamela Petro. Huguenots and Cynefin are universal experiences, universal feelings.
Yeah.
They are expressed, they have names in Welsh. So yes, Huguenots means a longing for, a yearning for. But it's not necessarily the romantic class. There are writers like Pamela Petro who writes in the book The Long Feeling that theorize that empty space, that presence of absence is a crucible for our creativity as well. So let's do something positive.
So that crucible could be the silence, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but I think increasingly it's a silence, it's a reflection, and it's a let's take action.
Okay.
We see ways through.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
I was just wondering whether you could speak to how your lack of Welsh language to your feeling of identity, and whether you felt legit, like how you maybe writing about it change your relationship to your Welsh identity, or whether you struggled and how you struggled with language. I mean, big question.
I still struggle with it. It's Kate here. Was Kate upstairs? And Kate was talking about in the previous session this morning about different selves. And I think I've got different selves, and I think that the language is my struggles, challenges to speak Welsh are part of that identity. But there's a whole mixture, there's a kind of spectrum of acceptability of where we come from in Wales, what Welsh we speak, whether we're from South Wales or North Wales, and even from village to village, it will change. And long may that be so, because it's a minority language and it's in danger of being squeezed out. And it's such a symbol, such a part of our identity, even if we don't speak it, we can feel it. But we need to hang on to answer the articulate.
Thank you all for these really amazing presentations. Such a great panel together. I'm just thinking too about the flicker as a really powerful metaphor, but also an actual physical manifestation through all of the works, and the idea of how that helps us sort of links connection, and then there's a kind of move between the black and the white. I'm thinking about the images becoming film and the space between the images as a movement, and how that also is reflected in the idea of silence and what happens in the writing process. And we do beat ourselves up, don't we, when we're not actively, well, Dan and I like to go on about how writing is an embodied, it's an art in a kind of embodied way, but also that we're writing when we're not
Yes.
typing. and also the idea of the flicker between the dust and the material kind of coming together of something like slate. So I just really, it's just been a powerful metaphor, and I thank Elise for kind of getting us down the track of thinking about that kind of flicker of silence. It really moved me to think about silence equals death, and the AIDS kind of mantra, and who wants being silent, and the flicker between those images really is powerful.
Yeah.
In the work that you showed. Thank you for checking your 90s self too. I think that's really as someone who's not, lived in the 90s, I lived in the 90s. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got a couple more minutes, if anyone has any final remarks or.
I'm sorry, I'm being greedy. The image of the flicker, which I kind of picked up from now, I also think about it in terms of what stage it does, but I also thought it in yours, but the flicker is a word to use for the, how can I say, propagandist way in which movies are made. So there's picture in Ukraine you can't see, but it's got a Coca-Cola can on it or a pack of Marlboros or whatever. So we take it in. So the flicker, yeah, you cinematographers talk about the flicker as actually imprinting a particular ideology or energy, you know. So I just wanted to pick up on linking together. Sorry, David.
Thank you. No, can we just thank again Caroline and Mel? That really was a wonderful collection of esoteric pieces.
Thank you all.
So we have arrived at lunchtime. Lunch is left out the door and then down the stairs to the right, and Katrina will be